Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at KAKM for Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, we've got fire weather warning for extreme fire danger here in the lower Kuskokwim Valley for lightning that's been occurring out in that area. And that's set to stay out until about 11 p.m. tonight, at which time it'll expire, or they'll kick it out longer. And on to fire danger map. Again, high fire danger extending down in toward the deltas there in the lower valleys. Some high fire danger here in northern Cook Inlet up across the Matanuska Valley. And also from the Copper River Basin, much broader area of high fire danger here through the interior. And some extreme up there over the northeast upper Yukon Valley, and an even more extensive area over the central Seward Peninsula, in back across the Kobuk Valley out toward Selawik, and then extending on northwest into the Noatak Valley. And on to satellite imagery today. Fair amount of sunshine back through this area, and then kind of a trough and some clouds right through here. And showers, thunderstorms developing here on the western edge of that cloud band. And then also here along the border, some thunderstorms there, more concentrated as opposed to the isolated to scattered they're seeing over toward, west of Delta Junction into the interior. And showers and some clearing here over south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, down in this area seeing a few showers. And also over the southeast coast, some pretty good showers occurring earlier down over at Klawock. But that all seems to be breaking up. You can see the clouds tending to dissipate throughout the afternoon. There still was shower activity continuing into about this hour here. Clouds across Kodiak Island, the western Gulf of Alaska, also over the Alaska Peninsula area, and then some lower stuff here from the north side of St. Lawrence Island on up into the Chukchi Basin, that kind of lifting, the fog burning off, the clouds lifting gradually here into the afternoon. More clouds down over the southeast Bering Sea. And then a fair amount of clearing here from roughly the western Kuskokwim Delta up across eastern Norton Sound and on up into the interior there. Then you run into some clouds there along the Brooks Range. The Arctic coast, that low pressure area, kicking off some areas of snow and fog, and some areas changing over to rain, like Nuix that was carrying both rain and snow throughout the afternoon today. And then here's the thunderstorms triggered, most concentrated here along the eastern border, down to about Northway, maybe as far north as Eagle, and then pretty scattered and isolated through this area. And then they picked up again along and west of the Alaska Range through the Kuskokwim Valley. About maybe 100 miles either side of a line running from Bethel up toward McGrath, and mostly showers down here, Kodiak Island, especially over Bristol Bay today. And king salmon picked up about 0.15 of an inch of rain during the day today, and some scattered shower conditions. Mostly a few hundredths to maybe 1/10 of an inch fell over the Alaska Peninsula. And again, showers scattered across the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast, and down across the Panhandle out to the west. Some pretty gusty winds, 28 to 35 miles an hour there at the Priblos, increased to about 40 to 45 in gusts as they blew across the central Aleutians today. and higher pressure out to the west there for lighter wind conditions. Pretty good day out towards Shemya and Attu. And the forecast for tonight, this next system brings rain, increasing rain and wind after midnight in across the southern southeast coast. Area showers persist up to the north. Mostly cloudy, scattered showers in North Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin. Evening thunderstorms again along this trough here from the eastern interior back down to the western Alaska Range and the Kuskokwim Valley, maybe extending down toward the Kilbark Mountain areas. Back to the north and west, drier northeast and northerly flow there, keeping it pretty fair here from the western Brooks Range, Selawik, Noatak Valley areas right down along the southwest coast with fog, low clouds again for Savunga, Gamble, up through the Bering Strait, and still hanging on to some light snow and patchy fog with the lowest flying conditions occurring on the central and especially the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, big high pressure drifts eastward here, dropping the winds off considerably there over the central Aleutian. Staying a little breezy, but not too bad here for the Fox Islands. Back up along the southwest coast, maybe 10 to 20, 15, gust 25 in the exposed areas there at Cape Romanzoff, and probably less though toward Cape Newenham. It'll be kind of mostly cloudy and showery in that area. And then way out on the western edge, you can see the next rain shield associated with an incoming system that will definitely push rain and some wind, gales in the forecast for the western Aleutians tomorrow with periods of rain spreading over the area as well. Otherwise to the east, high pressure, light winds from the central Aleutians right up to St. Lawrence Island, but considerable low clouds and areas of fog possible anywhere over the Bering Sea, all the way down to the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. This type of wind flow, probably see the lowest conditions occurring on the Bering Sea side of both the peninsula and over toward the Fox Island areas. Low pressure again over the southwest interior, triggering some thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon, Kilbark Mountains, up along the western Alaska Range, possibly the Kuskokwim Valley areas, and then eastward along that trough to the upper Tanana Valley area, 40-mile country, again from about the Tok Northway area, and probably less of that to the north. Just some scattered showers possible over the Koyukuk Valley, light showers, maybe some clouds and flurries, but a decrease in the moisture there along the Arctic coast. But winds pretty light with high pressure at the surface covering the entire area. This system spreads rain and pretty gusty winds, gales in Clarence Strait for tomorrow, and less wind up to the north though, with small craft advisories down to the south, but rain spreading all the way up towards Chilkoot and White Passes throughout the day. And then for Saturday, first day of the weekend, we've got high pressure building in over the southern southeast coast and the Queen Charlottes, right over Dixon Entrance. Still some scattered showers though, north of the high center from the central panhandle, becoming more numerous and heavier along the North Gulf Coast, scattering back out again as you get across Prince William Sound into south central Alaska. Mostly dry for Cook Inlet and the Manauskas-Susitna valleys. Then up toward the Brooks Range, again, afternoon thunderstorms triggered from the afternoon heating all along the Alaska Range here and back down toward the Kilbark Mountains once again. And still with that low center, kind of cloudy and maybe a few showers around the Koyukuk Valley up to the southern slopes of the central Brooks Range. Not bad here on the western Arctic coast, maybe a little bit of mixed precipitation on the east side, but this trough here tends to increase the chances of some moisture there for the central and western Arctic coast, but nothing too strong in the way of winds, the way it looks at this point in time. Eastern Bering Sea, light winds, areas of low clouds and fog, extending right down across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. This front weakening, so definitely going to lose the gales, and but that'll spread some rain and fog and likely IFR conditions into the Adak-Atka area, becoming more showery back towards Shemya. And for temperatures this afternoon across the southeast coast, 50s. Some areas did push into the lower 60s like Estuvos, but Metlakatla had 57, Klawock 53, 56 at Sitka, and a 58 at Juneau, while Yakutat mid-50s today. That temperature pattern along the North Gulf Coast there in across Prince William Sound, sunnier and warmer on the lee side of the Chugach and Talkeetna Mountains there with 62 in Kenai, 70 degrees at Willow, and mid-60s up toward Talkeetna, 60 degrees at Gulkana. There's a 63 occurring there at Northway, and Tok, I believe, was up to 66, and then back into the mid-50s there for the Tanana Valley, where they had anywhere from 1 to 2/10 inch of rain fell during the day today. Much cooler up to the north, just 39 at Fort Yukon and Arctic Village, with a 32 at Anatuvik and Umiat, but mostly in the 50s here, Koyukuk, Kobuk Valleys, all the way out to Kotzebue. 34 in Shishmaref, lower 30s along the Arctic coast, the entire stretch of the coastline there in the lower 30s. And southern south side of the peninsula here, 52 at Nome, Gullivan 55, same thing at Unalakleet, and 67 there at Holy Cross with more sunshine again through this area, and even Bethel up to 63, then back down to 48 at Makoriak, 37 at Gamble and Savunga, mid to upper 40s for the Pribilofs, mid 40s for the Western Aleutians. Adak pushed up to 52 this afternoon, otherwise 40s all the way over to Unalaska, and upper 40s to mid 50s here for the Alaska Peninsula. King Salmon 64, Koliganek had 57, Kodiak State Airport 51 degrees. And for the lows tonight, 40s all through this area, 30s, mid 30s back out over the Aleutians, to the Pribilofs up to St. Lawrence Island, upper 20s here along the coast, North Slope, mid 20s for the Arctic coast, and in toward the Brooks Range, with 40s to lower 50s over just about the remainder of the mainland and southeast coast. For the highs tomorrow, 60 to 65, 8, 9, maybe some areas pushing 70 degrees tomorrow afternoon. And same thing for the Sitna Valley, 60s again, Copper River Basin into the mid-60s in some areas. 50s for the Panhandle, again with the clouds, rain, and wind sweeping across that area. Upper 50s to lower 60s, south central Alaska. And moving on to flying weather tomorrow morning, quite an area IFR possible there from Cape Lismore all the way over to just about into Mackenzie River Delta, with marginal VFR covering the north slope and also down the east side here over toward the border, and possibly along the central and western or northwest Alaska range here, well, right through that area. Marginal VFR, the Alaska Peninsula, and east side of Kodiak Island up into Prince William Sound, all the way east across the Panhandle. Then a break out to the west, more marginal stuff creeping into the far western Aleutians. And for tomorrow afternoon, again, marginal out here, the IFR staying to the west and southwest through much of the day. And for the southeast coast, marginal VFR at times, especially over the central and southern areas, and along the Arctic coast, right along kind of hugging or off the coast on the west side, up into the coast and possibly a few miles southward onto the north slope on the east side. Otherwise, pretty good VFR. And for passes, Anatuvik, VFR for that pass, and Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal, trending toward more marginal in the afternoon, but it's going to be kind of marginal the entire day. Forecast marginal from rainy, windy, same forecast, marginal VFR. Isabel, occasionally marginal at times, thunderstorms along the mountains. Mentasta, that same forecast, occasionally marginal at times with some thunderstorm activity. And Tanita, VFR, Portage, marginal VFR, trending toward VFR conditions. Chilkoot and White, marginal. Freezing levels with that colder air up to the north here, we've got 2,000 feet down or just slightly south of the Brooks Range late tonight, early tomorrow morning. 4,000 to 6,000 feet down to the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island. Warmer area to the south here, central Bering Sea, 8,000 to 10,000 feet there just south of the central Aleutians. And then kind of a uniform 6,000 feet, give or take, there for much of the Gulf of Alaska, again from Cook Inlet down to Shelikof Strait, eastward across the southeast coast. And for icing tomorrow, Rime above about 7,000 feet here, spreading northward, again late tonight and throughout the day tomorrow there across the Panhandle, and then mixed icing possible here over the interior with the showers and thunderstorms, mostly above 6,000 feet, and out to the west with that front pushing in, look for some rime icing with that above about 7,000 feet out that way. Winds aloft showing a pretty sharp trough here, from the eastern coast, or the Beaufort Sea coast there, down into the interior. Pretty weak down into the central interior. Northerly flow, though, 50 to 80 knots out of the Bering Strait down off the southwest coast. And then this southwest flow with the upper low back in this area. And then that system and rain with the front spreading northward along that late tonight into the Panhandle, pushing north throughout the day tomorrow. And at 9,000 feet, there's a low center and pretty good winds here, 40 to 50 knots there from the Queen Charlotte's up along and just to the west of Prince of Wales Island, much lighter up to the north. Very light winds here over southern Alaska, even up in the interior areas to the Arctic coast. Very light winds here, northerlies 15 to 25 knots. Chukchi Sea southward to Nunivak Island, becoming very light by the time they reach the Alaska Peninsula. Eastern Aleutians, light variable winds through the ridge and then picking up considerably as you move to the west as that next front approaches. And for 3,000 feet, 25 to 45 knot winds there, pushing in toward the Queen Charlotte's and again off the southwest coast of the Panhandle. Light across the Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, into the interior, kind of a northeast 10 to 15 over the west-northwest areas. Then pretty brisk here, northerlies at 25 to 30 knots from St. Lawrence Island down across Nunivak Island, diminishing as you reach the Alaska Peninsula. And then look for those winds to pick up 40 to 50 knots out there in the west. Turbulence-wise, occasional moderate chop developing and spreading in over the Shimianatu area with just some light stuff reaching Amchitka Island. And then also with those northerlies, areas of light to isolated moderate below about 4,000 feet there. Maybe some mechanical turbulence over the eastern Brooks Range, but nothing too serious. And then moderate chop with those stronger winds from, say, roughly about Sitka on down to Heidelberg. And after after Stargazer, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Head to head, planet to planet.
Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. As we roll into June, two planets shine brightly.
And as he does every June, the mighty Hercules flexes his muscles in the eastern sky. He's strong, brave, tough, but how do I put this delicately?
He's not very bright.
Oh no! Exactly. And his dim stars make him hard to find.
Luckily, Hercules is also hard-headed because when we show you how to find him, you'll see that he goes head-to-head with another large constellation.
Let's show you.
Okay, we have our sky set for any night this week at around 10:30 p.m. facing southeast. That's where you can find two planets just after sunset. They look like very bright stars, but are much, much different.
Which planets are these? Well, let me give you some clues. The brighter of the two, and the one up and to the right, is also known as the red planet. It's the fourth planet from the sun, and it's the place to look for Martians.
It's Mars!
Oh, what gave it away?
I'm a good guesser. And I was going to say that Mars usually appears redder than the other stars. But this spring, well, that isn't the case. Lower in the southeast, you'll spy a very red twinkly star called Antares. This marks the beating heart of the constellation Scorpius the Scorpion.
Mars and Antares should be similar in color. After all, the Greek name for Mars was Ares, and Antares means rival of Mars.
The other planet is that yellow star-like object to the left. I don't need to give you any verbal clues for this one. I'll just show you what it looks like in a telescope, and you'll say...
Saturn!
Ah, my favorite planet. Saturn will be closest to Earth this week, so definitely check it out. Now we're facing east-southeast at 10:30 p.m., and we're looking for a muscle-bound hero.
I'm right over here, Dehne.
That is true. You've got the muscles, but you're definitely too bright.
Indeed, and Hercules is tough to find even for me. I first look for the bright blue star Vega. That lets me know I'm in the area. Above Vega is a four-sided figure of stars called the Keystone. That is Hercules' body.
To picture the rest of his body takes a lot of imagination. So let's throw the picture of him up there. Yep, he's upside down.
He's actually doing some acrobatics with another constellation named Ophiuchus. He's just as tough to picture in the stars, but Greek legend says he's holding a snake as well. Can you see that? Hercules and Ophiuchus are head-to-head in the sky, and the names of their stars attest to that. Hercules' head star is named Rosselgethe, and it means head of the kneeler. It's dimmer than the North Star, but you may detect a slightly reddish tint to it. That's because Rosselgethe is a red giant star about 360 light years away from us.
Ophiuchus' head star is called Rosselhague, and it means head of the serpent bearer. Ophiuchus may look like he is being strangled by the snake, but he's actually showing it off. Greek myths say that he learned to bring the dead back to life, thanks to the help of the snake. You know the symbol on ambulances of the snake coiled around a staff? That comes from this legend. So after sunset this week, look for the two planets in the southeastern sky, Mars and Saturn. They'll be hanging out near the constellation Scorpius and its red heart star Antares.
Then see the two giant constellations going head-to-head in the east-southeast, Hercules and Ophiuchus, and behold their head stars Rosselgethe and Rosselhague.
Hey James, have you ever wanted to be a constellation?
All the time. Should we pose?
I don't have a snake, but I bet the Stargazer's graphics can fix that.
For Stargazers, I'm James Hercules Alberry.
And I'm Dean Ophiuchus Regas. Oh man, they found a snake for me. Hoping you keep looking up.
Welcome back for the south coast, south to southeast. 30 knots tomorrow, gusts of 45 knots there to the south, and then easterlies to 25, dropping to 20 knots up along the north coast. Lynn Canal variable at 10, 10 knots, southeast 15 for the central inside waters. There's those gales for Clarence Strait, 35 knots with seas at 8 feet. Those drop off considerably on Saturday, just 15 knots there. But general increase as you head north, Stevens Passage south at 20, Lynn Canal south 30 knots with 6-foot seas, small craft advisories here on the north coast, diminishing to 20 and then 15 down the extreme south coast, but seas running 11 to 10 feet across the area. And for Cook Inlet, light southwesterlies 10 to 15 tomorrow, light variable winds for Prince William Sound, Kamishak Bay, and Shelikof Strait. Winds also light here for the east side of Kodiak Island, the Barrens, northeast 15 for the North Gulf Coast. And then we bring in small craft advisories here for the coastal areas, 25 knots with 8-foot seas, winds up to 20 knots for Prince William Sound with 4-foot seas, staying light out of the southwest for Cook Inlet, and pretty light here for Kodiak Island as well. 15-knot winds from the southeast, turning southerly from the Barren Islands in across Kamishak Bay. For Bristol Bay, light southwest breeze tomorrow. Northwest 10 to 20 here, blowing across the peninsula with seas running 5 to 7 feet. Light variable winds from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. And for Saturday, south winds 15 knots here on the south side of the peninsula on up to Sitkinak. Westerlies at 10, very light here for the north side of the peninsula. South 15 for Bristol Bay. Out in the Aleutians for tomorrow, north to northwest, 20 knots for the Fox Islands, 6 to 7-foot seas. Under high pressure, variable winds at 15 knots here for the central Aleutians, and then gradually increasing 20 to 30 or even 35 knots there out to the west. And then for Saturday, small craft advisories here for the western zone, southwest 20, just west of the central Aleutians, small craft advisories. That front pushing eastward and weakening, so 25 knots, 7 to 10-foot seas, east-southeast dropping off to about 10 there across the Fox Islands. And for the southwest coast, northerlies 25 knots, St. Lawrence Island down to Nunivak Island, turn northwest there at 20 to the south, and the Pribilofs north at 20 also. And then for Saturday, northeast 15 here for the Pribilofs. That same wind pattern extends right up into Kuskokwim Bay, a little stronger here north of the island and more northerly there. Only 20 knots though for St. Lawrence Island and 15 knots for the northern Bering Sea. Arctic coast, west-northwesterlies, pretty light there for the central and eastern coast, 10 knots, pretty light on the west side as well, and then picking up to 15, eventually 20 knots there as you head down toward the strait. And for Saturday, northwest 20 knots from Wales on up to Cape Thompson, and then 15-knot westerlies on the western coast, southwest 15 for the central coast, and then turning south and then southeast, but only at 15 knots to the east. For tonight, again, some clouds, flurries, fog here on the eastern Arctic coast, maybe some mixed precipitation over the eastern Brooks Range, but pretty fair out here to the west. Those winds diminishing in the central Aleutians. Scattered showers, Bristol Bay, isolated thunderstorms are becoming isolated here later tonight there into the Kuskokwim Valley up to the eastern interior. Showers, northern Panhandle rain increasing after midnight there or toward morning to the south. And that overspreads the entire Panhandle tomorrow with showers back to the west, isolated thunderstorms or scattered lightning strike areas here from the Kilburk Mountains along this trough into the eastern interior. Staying fair, mostly sunny back here to the west and the north, and that next system pushing into the central Aleutians on Saturday. There was some rain and again those 25-knot winds. Thunderstorms once again popping up over the interior, mostly along the Alaska Range. Showers here tapering off into the southeast coast. Fair Seward Peninsula, chance of moisture there central and western Arctic coast. Have a great evening. I'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.